late October 1918, a ship called the Tulune left Auckland Harbour in New Zealand, bound for the South Pacific. It routinely did monthly cargo runs up to Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, and other Pacific islands. But this time, it was bringing a new and deadly cargo that would soon have devastating consequences. As soldiers returned home from the battlefields of World War I in Europe, many unwittingly brought with them a new disease, the Spanish flu. Between 1918 and 1920, it's estimated that this viral flu killed from 50 to 100 million people around the world, a higher death toll than even the Great War which preceded it. The captain had relayed to ports in Fiji and American Samoa that it had infected crew on board, and so those territories quickly rejected the ship from docking. Yet inexplicably, the newly installed New Zealand administrator of Samoa, Colonel Robert Logan, allowed the ship to not only land in Samoa, but to do so without any quarantine procedures at all, despite advice from his colleagues and the availability of local facilities to do so. The ship docked in Apia Harbour on the 7th of November. Within days, infection had spread and people began dying. Within a month, an estimated 7,000 to 10,000 Samoans had perished from the disease, a quarter of the population. This tightly knit island community was used to observing the rituals around death as a time for cultural and community remembrance in a very personal way. Now, it was suddenly faced with the grief of leaving infected bodies along the roadside for collection, to be buried anonymously in mass graves near the picturesque seafront. Although some other Pacific islands also suffered infections and death from the Spanish flu, most were able to keep out the disease by closing their borders to shipping, this being an era before flight. Samoa was the worst hit by Spanish flu, and its tragic story reverberates today as a cautionary tale at a time when, exactly 100 years later, our region faces a new pandemic that is just as deadly.
The global epidemic, first reported in the city of Wuhan.
The number of COVID-19 cases in Papua New Guinea has more than doubled to 30 in less than a week.
The US territory of Guam has recorded 58 cases of COVID-19.
We're doing another community mass testing here, offering up to 300 tests to our residents, the community of Guam.
A US Navy aircraft carrier has also docked at the island after an outbreak at sea. The 5,000 personnel on board are being contained. So far, at least 36 have tested positive.
Maïna Sage qui a été testée positive. Hier, dans la soirée, les résultats de son test sont tombés à 20h19.
This film is less about politics and more about the way Pacific Islanders are adapting to their circumstances as they face the challenges of closed borders, quarantine, and economic shock. This is a story weaving together the personal video diaries of 4 people living in parts of Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia, who are finding ways to build resilience and stay strong until we all get to the other side of COVID.
Palauli Heritage Site is still looking good. Despite 6 months, we haven't been back due to the state of emergency and other responsibilities at the university. but the village is, Vaito'omuli are very interested in getting involved, back again, making
Dr.
sure.
Brian Alafetuli is an archaeologist who lectures at the University of Samoa on cultural heritage.
One of the classes that I teach is cultural heritage management, and the management of cultural heritage, and how this has actually changed in the managing and the value of culture over a period of time. And COVID-19 has basically affected the way that we understand culture. Samoa, it's a faith-based society also. We believe in our Christian faith, the majority. And we believe that we're going to do our part and pray that God protects us from the COVID-19 as long as possible. We've just heard that the SOE for many of church gatherings have lifted. I think it's still limited to 100. So we are trying to get as many kids back into the mood of Sunday school. Moto'tua Hospital. Pretty busy here in the morning in Samoa. So today is the 26th of August. I'm dropping off my wife to HEOC. HEOC is Health Emergency Command Center, where they discuss at a weekly basis some of the issues related to health, as well as preparations in case COVID-19 does hit Samoa. Okay.
All right.
We love you, also, babe. Love you. Okay. So when the measles hit Samoa, they were here basically daily. So, and I remember dropping off polisi on a daily basis.
Samoa is now in lockdown as authorities try to bring a deadly outbreak of measles under control.
Let's turn to Samoa. More than 50 people, most of them children and teenagers, have been killed by massive measles outbreak.
In 2019, just a year before COVID, Samoa was hit by a measles outbreak. 83 children died, and the country spent several months under a state of emergency as mass vaccinations took place.
Well, having to bury your own son is the most complicated and painful thing in life.
Fiji and Tonga also stepped up their vaccinations of children to stop any regional spread.
Doctors and nurses from Australia and around the world have come to lend a hand. The aim is to lift the vaccination rate from around 30% of the population before the crisis to 90%, a huge task for this small country.
Although Samoa suffered at this time, it may have helped fortify the country and its health system before the COVID pandemic arrived soon afterwards. In the Papua New Guinean border town of Vanimo, Dorothy Tekwe is preparing a feast, cooked in the traditional mumu earth ovens, to acknowledge the one-year anniversary of the passing of her brother John.
I'm Dorothy Tekwe. I'm based in Vanimo, the provincial capital of West Sepik province, which is the northern province that borders with the Indonesian province of Papua. Today we are making a feast for my brother. We're making a mumu.
John Tekwe was an MP and at one time governor of Sundown province in Papua New Guinea. Dorothy has a long history working with environmental groups and local communities.
My brother died 1 year ago, and this week is his anniversary, so making some payment to relatives who have been mourning with us during this 1 year anniversary. It's been quite a scary experience in the last months since the world declared coronavirus epidemic. We have been worried that it will come across the border, so people are not concerned about, they don't think it will happen to them. They think that it is just white man's disease and it's going to end up not coming here at all.
In Yap, the most westerly of the 4 islands that make up the Federated States of Micronesia, Leo Pugrum is also preparing a feast to acknowledge the 1-year anniversary passing of his father, one of the chiefs of Colonia, the capital of Yap.
He passed away last year, but it's his birthday, so we got family members that came over, and we're gonna barbecue, eat. Here we got pork and beef. My dad's birthday was a good time. We had a lot of food. I thought it was gonna be a happy day for us to celebrate my dad's birthday, but so it became like this sad day instead of a happy day for us. But all in all, I'm just glad my dad and I were able to make it back to Yap for him to be buried before the whole coronavirus thing, pandemic, and then, the borders being closed. Because if that would have happened, and we were still in the Philippines, and there are no flights in and out of Philippines also, so if that would have happened this month or last month, we probably would have to, bury my dad in the Philippines. That's a turtle shell that's attached to it. It's not that sharp, so, I gotta hit it really, really hard. And this is what I use to hit it.
Leo is Yap's premier tattoo artist, having revived the old customs of the island and specialising in traditional ways of inking.
People requesting it, especially tourists, so it hurts more and it takes, longer than any tattoo you would have done with a modern tattoo machine.
But with borders closed, his business has been dealt a serious blow.
Yeah, so I put the clay on. I have not done a tattoo since March 27, and now we're in the month of July. So it's been a while since I did a tattoo. It is what it is, said Donald Trump.
Nazia Ali is a well-known and regarded publisher and entrepreneur in Fiji. Her magazine My Life offers a mix of serious stories plus a slice of glamour. Nazia is married to Roy Krishna, Fiji's star football player, who's played first grade for Fiji and in New Zealand. He's been offered a contract for a team in India, but the couple aren't sure if they can get there now because of COVID.
We have spoken to the Indian High Commission and they will only issue a visa if he has a confirmed flight. So now we will be spending some time trying to work out how to get him across. We have to really do a lot of research and find out what's the best way for him to get to India.
In January of 2020, the beginning of this year, Colicia and I traveled to the States to see my parents. And at that time, everyone freely traveled. Myself and my wife are currently here in Samoa. I am distanced from my immediate family, my mom and my dad. My dad is currently in the hospital, diagnosed a couple of weeks ago with stage 4 cancer. My new norm will basically be, there's a possibility that I probably won't see my father anytime soon, given his current situation. Borders are closed. We don't know what may happen if the pandemic does hit Samoa. And it's that fear. Not only the fear of me not leaving to see my father, but also the fear of what would happen here.
It's been a crazy week. A lot has happened. One of the biggest things is that we're all coming to terms with our first COVID-19 death.
Nazia and Roy recently lost Roy's mentor, who passed away from cancer.
He was meant to go back to India in March this year for review and further treatment, but he couldn't because of the restriction that had come in place. India had shut down in March and nobody was allowed to travel there. You know, if he had the medical attention that he needed, which could only be provided offshore, he could have had a different fate.
Most Pacific countries have poor health systems that can make them especially vulnerable in times of a pandemic. That's why many opted to close borders fast and early.
We at the border here in Vanimo, we are very concerned. We've been worried about corona coming over the border from Indonesia. Once we have a case declared in Vanimo, there will be panic. A lot of people will just flee to the bush. A lot of people will be hungry, will starve because they are not prepared. We're going to have a problem because we have the poorest health system out of Vanimo. Even in Vanimo, we are not prepared for coronavirus.
So, 2 minutes later, I picked up Kolisi. She has all of the secret.
I do.
She knows what's going on with the government and health. Especially, how many people are coming in tomorrow? 300?
But according to the Ministry of Health, there's an estimated 300 passengers.
Cardosito. 300 passengers. Repatriated souls coming and returning back to Samoa. They're citizens or dual citizenships?
Citizens of Samoa.
Citizens of Samoa.
In case it happens, I don't want to imagine what it's like, but like what has happened in the past, you just have to look at big countries like America, Australia, the UK. So these are countries with advanced health systems, and yet they're suffering.
Here on this Sunday afternoon, this is the Leulu-Moenga hospital, the main hospital in case there are anyone who has symptoms that gets off of the airplane. They would bring them immediately to this clinic in this hospital.
Honestly, the hospital sucks. You know, you have a better chance surviving at home than going to the hospital. And we know that whatever is needed to cure you, if you do have the coronavirus, they do not have that at the hospital here in Yap.
1, 2, 3, 4. Chuko go, chuko go. Chuko go, chuko go. Yeah.
Despite the pandemic, the day-to-day cycle of life and work and death play out. Important custom rituals continue as normal, especially in those islands free of COVID, like Yap.
here on Yap now, not having the coronavirus, we can still get together and, you know, have large parties like that or events. Yeah, come on. Traditionally, when it's a kid's first birthday, they would shave the hair off the kid. They actually applied fish blood to the kid's head after it was shaved off. And then after the blood, they apply turmeric on top of it to dry it off. That's a traditional way of celebrating your a kid's first birthday. Kid took it like a champ. That kid did not cry at all. I was jealous that my birthday this year, it was during the curfew 77 and we were not allowed to be in groups, so I celebrated my birthday alone. Yes, I was jealous of a 1-year-old kid.
Family members are still attending graduation ceremonies. Closed borders have had a real impact on local business and national economies, particularly in a region so highly dependent on tourism.
Just looking at the tourism industry at the moment, you go out, you see hotels are closed. There's some maintenance work done, but most of the workers have been sent home, apart from those who may be working in hotels that have become quarantine facilities.
This is O'Keefe's Waterfront Inn. The doors are open because we got the staffs going in and out. Yeah, so before the coronavirus, I used to be very busy because I had my business that I was running, and also I had to come down here and work. You know, I was the IT, PR, and marketing manager. And there's my favorite spot to work at. On the couch, having a gin and tonic, doing my work with the guests, you know, tell stories. Oh, this is a picture of O'Keefe. So we only have 5 rooms. We don't have that many rooms, but you know, it's nice being on such a small island. 5 rooms, we're usually booked. But we got only about 2 staffs working here. We have no guest. We haven't had a guest since March.
I'm still coming to terms with how, you know, a business that I was running for almost 9 years, I have to, you know, sort of really slim down and think about how the future of that business would run. But you know, I think that I made a right decision to close the business in terms of physical operation and still operate on you know, the need-to basis. But I think a lot of businesses are having to take this approach.
So Johnny and I have decided to go down to a restaurant. They've been open for a couple of weeks now, but we have not gone down there since it opened up after lockdown. We were talking about it, thought, why not just go down, grab a beer, you know, talk with the owner. We haven't seen her for a long time, so that's what the plan is for this evening. And we are out of luck because it turns out that it is actually closed. So right now there's only 2 restaurants open. Out of the 8 restaurants, only 2 are open, and we're heading out to the second one right now. We're in Colonia right now, and as you can see, there's nobody around. It's like a ghost town, not a lot of people like before. And this is Oasis Restaurant. And funny enough, it is closed also. I have no idea what's going on right now, but both restaurants are closed. So I guess We're just gonna go to a store and grab a beer. So we're here at the store, my nephew's store, Leo's gift shop. It's same name as me. So everything is basically back to normal, I guess. At least I don't have to wear a mask every time I go out.
I heard in the radio earlier or late last week that they are encouraging people now to use face masks. So, I mean, it's pretty real.
I mean, we're pretty lucky here in Yap because, you know, I can get to walk around with my friends, no mask. There are no tourists at all because there are no flights to Yap. We don't even have to practice social distancing or anything like that, but you know, in other places they have to because they got cases, increasing by the numbers like every day.
Already we have one case confirmed that it's positive. Others say it's not positive. But people are still not maintaining social distancing and wearing masks, that sort of thing, here in Vanimo town.
There's a suspect of people, rumors was telling us about coronavirus already in our province.
For countries like PNG, where COVID is still spreading and not yet under control, businesses and their customers have had to enforce mask wearing and hand wash basins outside shops.
There's this lady washing her hands, also observing hand washing, which is good. People are coming and washing their hands here before they're going inside. Some people just walk in, of course. They are not concerned. They don't really think it's going to happen here in Vanimo, but let's see if this guy's going to wash his hands. Yeah, he's at least washing his hands.
Dorothy is checking up on them in town and at the airport.
Checking because we are in the border, although there's no social distancing and people are not really concerned about corona. They don't think that it's dangerous for them anymore. 24th of October 2020, we're still filling in forms in Vanimo.
People are used to the fact of going into quarantine as soon as they arrive in Samoa. That's the Faleolo airport. Not too much action going on here. Pretty empty. As you can see there are no flights, empty parking lots. Usually it's somewhat crowded on a Sunday with flights coming in, depending on when flights do come in and arrive. Samoa is actually on a lockdown. So like many countries around the world, flights are coming in from New Zealand on a weekly basis. There are people who are quarantined right now, mainly in a Pia area in some of the hotels and in private residents.
So what has been the issue so far?
Couldn't find my flight. The route. But finally have to do quarantine in Auckland for 2 weeks before I can continue my journey to India.
In my hometown, there were a few suspected cases, but there have only been one case so far. We don't have large numbers like it is in the other parts of the world, but even one case for us is big enough.
They were told to stay indoors, but they were like, oh, we need our haircuts. I need to go to the barber shop. I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, you're risking your lives and the lives of others, your family members included, just to get a haircut. Do it at home. It kind of messed my hair up, but yep. What do you think? See the back. I'm gonna hit the shower and then start working. Let's go to work. You know, we do not have coronavirus. We are pretty lucky, but we do have dengue fever. Because I'm kind of responsible for that, and I want to make sure that people are cleaning around their houses. I want to make sure that, you know, everything gets cleaned up, because I do not want the dengue fever in our village. As you can see, this family has gathered theirs in front of their yard, so it'll be easy for the car to pick it up, which is good. I like seeing that. It tells me that people are actually cleaning up. Hopefully, everyone cleaning their area, their homes, will prevent it from spreading.
Now we're gonna head down to the wharf, and we'll turn around. The wharf has actually been cut off. I mean, there's no transportation on Sunday, and so that has also stranded many individuals. But usually there is a boat that goes back and forth probably a couple of times on the Sunday afternoon. As you can see, the boat is on standstill. It's not moving. Usually it runs on Sunday. Upolu is the main hub of trade. This is where the capital is, and so on and so forth. If COVID-19 were to hit Samoa, we can just imagine the limit or the limitations of foods or certain types of supplies going to the island, big island of Samoa.
Closed borders have interrupted supply chains to supermarkets, and one concern at the forefront of people's minds is the need for food security.
The streets, how more people are selling fish on the streets, more people are selling vegetables on the streets. The COVID-19 has basically restricted how people are making a livelihood. It's about that resilience of Samoans to continue on.
It's pushed many people to plant their first gardens or extend their existing ones.
Farming, you hear more people talking about farming of lettuce and their own vegetables, as well as raising their own crops. And as you can see here in Malololele, we're actually in the process of building, my wife and I, and we'll get to that probably like in the upcoming weeks. But you can see that these farms are growing more and more taro. And part of it's also doing because we don't know if we're going to shut down imports into Samoa, mainly rice or bread or other, products to make these particular types of products, flour, sugar, so we don't know.
If you can see how beautiful this village is, we talk about food sustainability. Yeah, those are all eggplants, banana, we have lots of cocoa.
I was not the only one in the village that was working on a garden. So pretty much like it was a good thing during lockdown, because it gave people time to, you know, fix their first garden or work on a second garden. Oh, this is a tomato that I planted in a pot upside down. It was just like as an experiment. These are my eggplants. Got like cabbage over here. I made sure I planted a lot of peppers. Oh, and there's the last of the cucumber. It's a small one. During the lockdown, and when, you know, nobody was doing anything, pretty much, I kept myself busy working on the garden. I think these are ready to be picked and eaten. I don't know. I think that's the thing. I don't know anything about gardening, so now it's just a waiting game. I'm waiting for these peppers to get big so they can, you know, give out peppers. One thing that I also noticed, even though people hated the lockdown, some people hate it, like I did at one point because I couldn't go anywhere. When you really think about it, something good came out of it.
You can see the fishermen on the water, fishing there, right on the water there. And they just do their own things. This is village life, so the fishermen are right here. The fish seem to be aggregating here, so they're catching these little ones, not more than 6 inches, but that's something for the family for the day, so it's quite good that they're able to do that for the family. We are dependent on the sea, we are dependent on the forest, and we don't think that coronavirus would affect us because we are going to be still alive.
Being that I'm the only guy in my family, like I'm my mom and dad's only son, I'm responsible to go fish for them so they can have fish to eat. But because I haven't gone fishing, they don't have any fish to eat. My mom is teaching my nephew and I, because we both can't cook to save our lives. We do not know how to cook, especially my nephew. They got that part from the banana tree. It's actually really good for you, for your body. It has a lot of iron in it. Banana flour mixed with a can of corned beef. Even though I don't like it, I gotta eat it because it's good for me. So pop in one of those peppers just to kill the taste of it.
So let me taste this. See if it's good.
I know it can handle it. Yeah. And it doesn't look like it's so much oil.
Hi.
This is Gab.
Hello. How are you? It's about COVID-19.
For COVID-19. So
Yeah.
COVID-19. So Fortino helps to keep the immune system up to help you
Oh,
battle COVID.
very good.
It's full of antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. It's just like mother's milk.
So anyway, it just goes back to saying that people are somewhat still happy. We're still preparing for tomorrow, Tonai.
One of the things that, I've been trying to do now is learn how to cook. I actually once cooked rice in a rice cooker, and I plugged it in, I did everything, I put the rice in, and I kept waiting for it, and suddenly, like, smoke was coming out. It was because I didn't add any water, because I thought it was like popcorn, it'll just pop. I have a garden now, that's where I got the eggplants from, but my mom usually cooks it for me, and it's one of my favorites now. I know what's missing. A glass of wine. Never cook sober. I don't know if you take the seeds out of the eggplant or not. I'm just gonna leave it in. I don't know. Let's open up the sardine. Oh, shit. We were poor. And I have 5 sisters. So my dad and mom would go to the garden and get a whole bunch of vegetables and add it to 1 can of sardine for all of us to eat. You can never go wrong with soy sauce. I eat everything. I add soy sauce to everything that I eat. I know it looks like somebody threw up, but
once these stones are very hot, we're gonna put the parcels of food, chicken and vegetables in it. They're covering this food up in banana leaves, also cover it with foil to keep the juice inside. That taste brings out that beautiful taste in a momo. And that's a momo from Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, good afternoon. Today is the 17th of September. Getting news that, now my mom will be held in the hospital for a few days in the States. I have an uncle. They said he's on a machine at the moment. Brain damage. Just text my auntie. It's just in the feeling of that 2020, there's a lot going on, not only with the COVID-19, you have issues within our own families. The fact is that, it just gets heavy on your heart that you're unable to be with your mom and your dad.
One of the effects of lockdown and the pandemic keeping families and friends apart is a growing number of people struggling with mental health issues.
I've been chatting with my friends, and almost all of my friends, outside of YAP, are all depressed, So just hearing them being depressed, I get really depressed. And I'm out of my medicine, a medicine that I take for depression. The hospital does not have any more of that in stock. The whole coronavirus, not being able to travel, just know that I'm trapped. So this is what I've been doing, trying to get in shape, because I've gained a little, drinking a lot during lockdown, being bored and depressed. I drank a lot. But the problem is, every time I come here trying to work out and I see the bed always wins. I always end up lying on the bed and, falling asleep. I just can't wait for all of this, the world to get back to normal. I just can't wait, because I know I'm not the only one getting depressed. I'm not the only one thinking about suicide. So the faster we get back to normal, maybe the more lives we can save also.
For us to be able to go away and have that time has helped, just mentally prepare us for what the future holds. Just getting this fresh air has helped in a way, to deal with this whole stress that we've been carrying since COVID hit.
Talofa, it's around 5:30 p.m. in the evening. Me and Jace hanging out here at Samoa Hospital. As you can see with the COVID-19, it's not just a person alone journey, it's a shared journey. You see everyone, we share this journey together. And now everyone's playing some volley. Hello everyone. Some me time and some good mental health time. Lots of laughter and keep moving.
Coaching, help coach these kids, to me, helps a lot. And I know it helps them, but it also helps me a lot mentally. They are not that good. That, keeps them busy. Hopefully it keeps them off drugs and alcohol. But at least they have something to do.
Looking at the mental health and just the status of many people in Fiji, you see there's a slight shift in terms of things looking more positive in the sense that they are able to have more freedom to move around. So as a result of that, Fiji football has become the first sporting body to start sports, and have the public attend. Very recently we had the start of football in Bar, and it was welcomed, and a lot of people enjoyed the fact that you had sports back on, and it has brought the spirits up. But really to be able to watch a game and to go out and play with your friends is something that is really changing the moods of people. You know, you don't have this gloomy, we're stuck at home feeling. It's like, okay, it's great now, today I can go and play with my friends and, you know, get some exercise in, and at the same time, you know, it lifts spirits up, and this is what we really need at this time.
So today is an exciting day for me because I'm going spearfishing tonight. Here are my fishing tools, my goggles, snorkels. I think I'll go with this. In our culture in Yap, whenever you go fishing, you don't tell anybody because it's considered bad luck. But last night there was like no fish at all, like only a few fish and just small ones, you know. But it was good to go back out fishing because, like I've said, I have not gone fishing since March during the curfew. So it was nice to go back into the water, and the biggest catch I got was this. It's a humphead parrotfish, and as it turns out, it's illegal to catch them. I had no idea until today, and my boss came over and he was like, "Oh, Leo, you do know it's illegal to catch that type of fish." And I was like, "It's too late now, you know, it's already dead." But now I know that it's illegal to catch humphead parrotfish.
Another challenge for the region has been ongoing natural disasters, like cyclones, in the middle of this pandemic.
Autopilot.
At one stage in April, Vanuatu was dealing with 3 crises at once: COVID, a Cat 5 cyclone smashing its northern islands, while volcanic ashfall affected its southern islands. Fiji was seriously impacted by 2 cyclones in 2020, Harold in April and then Cyclone Yasa in December, both causing death and destruction. Amidst fears that climate change is increasing the number and intensity of cyclones, the Australian Navy and other regional powers are having to respond more and more to disasters in the Pacific. Border closures have meant island nations have largely had to deal with disasters mostly on their own. But they see some benefits to this, as islands take more control of their sovereignty and responsibilities when it comes to disaster response at home. For those island countries without any COVID cases, there's been an opportunity to celebrate their sovereignty and custom life without the need for social distancing or tourists. There was plenty of dancing and joy on the island of Tanna in Vanuatu during September, when the 12 tribes and nakamals of the island came together for the Nekoya, also known as the Toka dance. It's a special event which happens every 7 years or so to celebrate unity and traditional exchanges.
Well, from a purely medical perspective, I think the countries have done very well, that the region has done very well. By and large, the countries have limited the number of cases into the countries. To date, over 20,000 cases into the Pacific. And a lot of those cases were in French Polynesia and Guam because, as you know, the border control in those countries was a little bit more open than many of the others. But for the countries that maintained closure of their borders or quite strict travel restrictions at the border, they have been able to control the number of cases that have been coming into the country. So from a public health perspective, the Pacific, we could say, did quite well in limiting the spread of the disease.
The geopolitical consequences of the pandemic in the Pacific remains to be seen.
Dr. Henry Avara Toure is a senior lecturer at the Australia Pacific Security College, based at the Australian National University in Canberra.
But if we look at the trends in COVID infections in the Pacific, you will note that COVID infections are very high in countries that do not have control over their own borders. They have done extremely well in protecting their people by closing their borders. They have already received offers of assistance from their neighbors, various governments in the region. Paramount in developing next vaccine strategies is they need to undertake the necessary consultation with all the actors and players that are important in ensuring that there is wide coverage of the population. And that means working with NGOs and other partners who are able to support the vaccination process.
In reflecting over the experiences of last year, one of the opportunities that this presents to us is both, in government and in civil society, is the opportunity to rethink how we do development, because it's a new set of reality that's been forced upon us. We've got to work together.
The strength of regional cooperation can be found in initiatives like the Pacific Humanitarian Corridor, keeping air and sea lanes open to assist with essential supplies. Australia and New Zealand have pledged to support the vaccine rollout across the South Pacific via this corridor.
We have not forgotten our overseas partners, our family here in our own region. Minister for Foreign Affairs and Minister for International Development in the Pacific are already working with their counterparts on a dedicated vaccines program around the needs and health systems of our Pacific family.
We are supporting our Pacific neighbours with vaccination purchase arrangements, and that has been a key focus for us. There are some vaccines, however, which will make that distribution in those environments a bit more tricky, and that's where we're working alongside our Pacific neighbours on those issues, but they are absolutely part of our purchase arrangements.
Brian, Nazia, Leo and Dorothy have all brought personal insight to the challenges we face in such uncertain times. We've learnt how many of us rely on faith, family, and a bit of farming to get us through. A year on from the COVID outbreak, all of the diarists are feeling more positive. Brian's had good news about his father.
God has blessed Samoa, and God will protect Samoa.
Roy and Nazia have received their visa for India.
Yay! Finally, I got my visa for India. It was very difficult, but I just want to thank everyone.
Leo received his COVID vaccination in February.
Yes. Are you going to do like a cocktail thing? Or? So that's it? Thank you. Right now they're just going to keep us here for observation. They're going to monitor us for 15 minutes to see if we have any reaction, or keep us here just in case we die. They get to move our bodies before the kids come in. Everything seems okay with us. We're okay to go home. So we're happy, we're happy that nothing's happened to us yet. And we're okay to go home. They told us to go home and rest. So no work, which is good. And, we're really happy that we went through it, that we got the first shot and the second shot. And I hope more people get vaccinated so, we can beat this virus and get back to normal. So, right on.
1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ezekiel.
We just got to work together. Everybody's got to work together to, hopefully put an end to this and go back to normal. I can't wait for that, going back to normal.
Bless you, Ezekiel. Happy birthday to you.
Way go!
What about Papua New Guinea? Should we be moving towards going back onto the land? Is it a point at a time in our world history where we should take back our Melanesian culture? We should look at the issue of our heritage, the land. Right now is the turning point for every country in the world. Go back to your land, sit on your land, and do things. So it's a new way that we should also be thinking as leaders to do.